guys, welcome back to the Birds Party channel. Today I'm going to share with you some easy DIY ideas in a nautical farmhouse style. These projects are perfect to help you decorate anywhere in your home. For instance, decorating a tea tray, styling a mantle as you can see behind me, or dressing a beautiful table this summer. I hope you'll enjoy the ideas and feel inspired to have a go. Before we get started, if you're new to the channel, don't forget to subscribe down below and hit the bell button so you're notified each time I upload a new video. With that being said, let's get crafting. And our first project is to make these really adorable little wooden houses or little beach huts, and you can use them individually or group them as fours to use on your decor. And for this project I'm using some advent calendar little boxes, so basically I'm repurposing, reusing what I already have in my craft stash. And these little wooden houses, they come with a little opening, but I am turning them around to use the backing of it. As you can see, there's a little hole, but we're going to sort all that out with some really cute farmhouse style numbers. And the first thing I'm going to do is to paint them, and I chose a little coastal themed colors or nautical colors like blues, dark blues, and also gray. And so I'm going to mix some white and black acrylic paint to create the shade of gray that I want. Obviously feel free to use whatever colors you like, whatever colors are going to suit your decor. You could use a little bit of red as well and different shades of blue. But my first little house, I am painting this kind of sea blue, or whatever shade of blue this is. It's what I had at home, and it's from my daughter's acrylic paint craft stash, so don't think that you have to go out to buy anything special. Just any old acrylic paint will do for this job. And if you haven't got these little wooden houses, fear not. I know that the Dollar Tree sells some little house decorations. I think they're little signs that you can use to paint it yourself or use as decorations, you know, similar items to this one. They might be a little bit bigger, I'm not quite sure, because I live in France. I do not have a Dollar Tree near me, but I have seen them on several YouTubers channels, and you can use something similar as well. And I'll be sure to leave the link down in the description box to anything that I find on Amazon online that you guys can check out and use to make this project. And I don't know if you guys noticed, but my little houses were all different widths and heights as well, and I think it adds a lot of interest to the collection when they're grouped together, you know, on a mantle or as part of the decor. But obviously use what you have handy to you. You know, if you can only find one size, then use that. They'll still look super adorable when you paint them. And for the paint colors, like I said, use whatever paint colors are available to you or that match your decor. I only did one coat of each because I wanted to leave it quite rustic, you know, for that kind of farmhouse coastal vibe I was going for, and not to waste any paint because I only had only two shades of blue. I mixed my aqua or teal blue color and the navy blue to create a third color, which is this one. I don't know what to call it, but it's a little bit more on a grayish side. I believe it looks a little bit lilac on camera, but you know, it looks really nice on real life. So if you haven't got the right shade of blue or whatever other color you're painting, you know, you can just mix your colors and create something totally new and custom to your project. And while I waited for my little houses to dry, I decided to paint some wooden numbers to stick on the front of the little houses to hide those holes that I showed you guys. And for this I'm using the same white acrylic paint that I used to mix up my grey color. And I know that you can find something similar to these numbers at the Dollar Tree. They sell a bag of numbers and letters, I believe, and you can use that for your project as well. And while we're on the subject, I wanted to ask you guys if you have found any techniques of painting these wooden numbers and letters that does not create a huge mess and that don't get any paint puddling around the numbers. I find them quite challenging. As you can see, you know, you have to be really careful when you're painting. Just paint them and just let them dry and just do another coat if you can, but you kind of get a little bit of pooling around the edges. So if you have a better technique, let me know down in the comments. Thank you so much. And when my little wooden houses were dry, I just used the same paint, you know, not to waste anything, and kind of dry brushed on top of the blue shades and the grey as well, to give it that kind of beached, weathered look, you know, that you get in little houses, little beach huts, I mean. And I think it looks so adorable, and it makes it look a little bit more aged, and we achieve that kind of farmhouse look that we love so much. And I wanted to point out to you guys that if you're a little bit heavy-handed with your white paint, do not worry, just go in with a dry paper towel and kind of wipe off the excess, as I'm doing here. So if you do something that you don't like, don't fear, you can always use paint to cover that on top, or use this paper towel technique to kind of fix your little happy mistakes or accidents. Now when both my little houses and the wooden numbers were dry, all I did was to stick them on the front to hide the little holes using a little bit of hot glue. And there you have it, you guys. These little huts look so adorable individually on a tier tray, or you can group them together to decorate a table centerpiece, a mantle, a shelf, or anywhere else you like in your home. For our next DIY project, we're making these gorgeous coastal style hurricane candle holders. This is the easiest project of the day, and we're going to use some nautical rope that you can find at the Dollar Tree, I know that for sure, and also on Amazon, and I'll leave some links down in the description box for you. And we're going to use a hurricane glass, and you can buy these also at the Dollar Tree. And to make this simply, you're going to use some hot glue, and I'm using a high temperature hot glue gun here, but you can use your regular glue gun with regular hot glue, and just use a little dab of E6000, Gorilla Glue, Super Glue, or some other type of strong glue. And as you notice here, I'm adding the first row of rope on the bottom and just adding some glue to the glass itself. But when I go up on the next row, I just add the hot glue to the rope, so the glue is not visible on the inside, and you don't get, you know, a lot of mess through the glass, because you'll be able to see the inside of the hurricane glass or the candle holder as well. So be sure that as you go around, just now and again add a little dab of hot glue onto the rope. You don't have to glue the whole thing in place, it will be quite secure as it is. So I just added a little bit of hot glue there, and, you know, sparingly onto the rope, just to attach all the pieces together. And at this stage, you have the option of kind of singeing the little hairs on the rope if you like, with a little lighter. I didn't bother, I think it looks really nice and rustic this way. And also I didn't have the same thickness of rope to go around both of my candle holders, so here I'm using a thicker piece of rope, and just to show you guys that you can basically use whatever you have available to you. Next up, we're going to be making a really cool farmhouse coastal sign to decorate anywhere you like in your home. And for this project, I'm using some wooden signs that are actually from a Christmas sign that I had purchased a while back, and that I actually used one of the panels of the sign for a hot cocoa bar. You probably have seen here on the channel. I'll leave the link down in the description box for you. And this is what I had at home to create my new coastal themed sign. I also had this fish that was also from a previous sign that I had sitting in my garage, you know, gathering dust, and it was red. I mean, you could use it as it was nothing wrong with it, but I wanted it to match my decor, so I decided to paint it blue. on top, and using the same acrylic blue that I used to paint the little beach huts, so the beach houses that you saw in a previous project. Once again, use the colors that you have available to you and that will match your decor. And basically the idea was to kind of hang the two signs as you saw, you know, the beach house one and the seaside sign with the fish in the middle, and make it look really nice and rustic for the look that we're going for, which is the nautical or coastal farmhouse. And once again, you guys feel free to paint it whatever colors are available to you and that will match your decor. I'm kind of repeating the same colors that I used for the little beach huts or the beach houses, and I really like that kind of, you know, weathered look, you know, as if it's some driftwood that you found on the beach and you're kind of repurposing. So I barely painted my signs, and once again, you can use signs that you can find at the Dollar Tree or your local craft store for creating a project like this one. And for my last piece of the sign, I wanted that wood look. I thought it looked really nice already, but I just used a little bit of white acrylic paint and using the same technique that I did for the houses to give it kind of a weathered look and make it look a little bit more aged. And this is what I did to the fish as well. So I went back in when the fish was completely dry, the blue paint, just to kind of pick up on any detailing that the fish had, and using a really dry brush with a little bit of white acrylic paint, I just kind of tried to highlight all the details to make it look aged and really rustic as well. Now for the lettering on my signs, I basically used my silhouette cutting machine to create, you know, the seaside and a beach house, a little text to go in the center of my signs. You could use a Cricut as well. If you haven't got a cutting machine, you can paint by hand. You can use stencils, you can use sticky letters. You know, the world is your oyster. So just basically use what's available to you. I like to use my silhouette because it's quick and easy, and I like the result as well. So basically all I did was to cut out the text and just use some transfer tape, and here what I'm doing, I'm just scraping the letter to make sure that it's really sticking to my transfer tape properly so that I can add that to my sign. But you can use a little credit card or some hard tool like a spatula or something similar, just if you're using a cutting machine, to make sure that your vinyl adheres properly to the transfer tape. But like I said, if you haven't got a cutting machine, I have on a couple of previous videos shared some techniques where you can use paint and stencils as well to create similar signs. So I'll be sure to leave the link down description box to my home decor playlist, so don't forget to check that out so you can see other ideas and other techniques if you haven't got a cutting machine. And basically here, once the letters were adhered to the transfer tape, I just peeled it off and just stuck that to the center of each of the signs, and then just basically is a matter of removing the transfer tape and you're left with the beautiful white vinyl letters underneath. Now to hang my sign, I'm using some nautical rope once again to tie in all the decor together, but because I didn't have enough rope, I decided to unravel this rope, which is basically 3 ropes wrapped together. So there's a little tip for you guys, so make your rope go further by unraveling it, and once that's done, just basically place your sign as you want it on top of the rope. Obviously don't forget to flip it over, and using a staple gun, just staple everything in place. It's as easy as that. Then to finish it off, just tie a knot on the bottom of the rope and kind of fray the edges to make it look really nice and rustic. last but not least, we'll be making this DIY nautical wheel. And for this project, for the wheel part, I'm using a round platter or a round tray. It's made of rigid plastic, and I'll leave a link down in the description box where you can get something similar. But you could also use anything that's round, you know, a serving dish that you can find at the Dollar Tree that is sturdy enough but also quite flexible, so you're able to use a craft knife very carefully, like I am doing here, to remove the center part of it. So we need kind of like a wheel shape. So look around your local craft store, the Dollar Tree, or online for something similar that you can use for this project. And basically all I did afterwards was to take a pair of scissors to trim off any of the imperfections that were left behind by the cutting using the craft knife. Now for the center of my wheel, I am using a jam jar lid, as you can see there in black, and some candy floss or cotton candy skewers, which I already had at home. As you can see, they've been painted on, so I am recycling or repurposing craft supplies I already had at home. And I suggest using square ones, that you can see here, not the round ones, and you'll see why in a moment, because we need to stick it to the center part. And if it's square, it's much easier to get it stuck on, and it will produce a much nicer result than round barbecue skewers. And basically I just placed my wheel on top, you know, the silver part, just to measure exactly how long these little sticks needed to be. And basically I'm cutting 8 of them, so we're making a cross and then a stick in between each of the other sticks. You see in a moment what I mean when I arrange them and hot glue them together. So basically I'm just using some high temperature hot glue to stick my little candy floss sticks around my lid, and this is why they need to be the square shape, so that it's much easier and you get a nice surface area to stick them to the lid. So basically when you have your center part all glued onto the lid, you're just going to glue that to the wheel part. And here once again I'm using some hot glue underneath each of the sticks and on top as well, to make it really nice and sturdy. If you want, you can add some hot glue as well, as you can see here I'm doing in the center part, to make it a little bit more rigid. Now for the edges of my nautical wheel, I'm using these fancy little rounded clothespin or clothes pegs, and basically the idea is just to cut one of the legs and just stick them like so on the back of the nautical wheel. And to cut them, they're quite easy to cut, even though it looks a little bit like I'm struggling here, but I'm not. You just use a pair of secateurs, the same that you use to cut the little barbecue skewers, and trim off the legs to size to fit around your nautical wheel. And for the diameter wheel that I am actually making, I am using 8 of these pegs, just like for the candy floss or barbecue skewers. So if you have a smaller or larger diameter wheel that you're making, obviously you're going to need more or less pegs and barbecue skewers, you know, to fit around your diameter. And basically when you have all your pegs cut, you're just going to use some more hot glue and stick them on the back of your wheel like so. So you have the little rounded edges poking out. Now when my hot glue was completely dry, I just painted the whole thing using some matte white spray paint. This was a really inexpensive paint, so I had to do several coats. But you know, obviously feel free to use whatever colors you fancy, whatever colors you have at home or that suit your decor as well. And if you want, it's totally optional, you can turn the wheel around once you've painted the front and spray paint the back as well. I didn't bother to do that because no one is going to see the back, but if you want, you can do that. Make sure that you get a really nice finish all the way around. Now when my white paint was completely dry, I just took some grey acrylic paint and a very dry brush, and I just tried to highlight any of the details and give it that aged farmhouse coastal look that we're aiming for. At this stage I was thinking I was going to leave the wheel as it was, so I kind of painted in the center as well, and you could totally stop here, but I didn't kind of like the look and decided to go in with some nautical rope later on to kind of add some detailing and to hide some of the hot glue. So if you're leaving your wheel as it is, you know, you just paint the center. If not, then don't bother painting the center, it's up to you. So as you can see here, I'm adding some jute twine to the edges. That'll help to hide any hot glue that you may have that is seeping through, you know, and also adds a really nice nautical coastal vibe to the whole thing. So basically just wrap around the edges, you know, hot glue everything in place, and voila. I also decided to go around the center part to hide any of the hot glue with some more of that twine, and just tied it around and hot glued everything in place to make it look really nice and give it that nautical vibe once again. And to finish it off, like I said, I decided to add some nautical rope to the center to hide that lid. So basically I just coiled my nautical rope around and just hot glued it in place, adding a little dab of hot glue here and there just to secure the whole thing. Obviously you could leave your nautical wheel as it is, but I decided to add a little bit more nautical rope. You can never have too much nautical rope in a nautical or coastal decor, right? So I just added a little rope around the edge to finish the whole thing off. And there you have it, our fabulous farmhouse style nautical wheel. I hope you guys enjoy these ideas and feel inspired to recreate some of them at home to decorate your space. And if you like this video, please don't forget to give it a thumbs up. It really lets me know that you like this kind of content. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye bye.